Thank you, Vice Mayor. It was Janae. I know you're calling me captain. I'm still flattered. Thank you very much. But this is about Measure U. When we campaigned for Measure U, you as the voters voted for 60%, voted for the passage of Measure U, and the people in the audience wanted to see restorations. I worked with the police chief last year. We pushed as hard as we could to fill the academies. In fact, I was trying to get the chief more positions, but he was very honest that he could not fill the academies. So we hopefully would have had more, but we worked very hard, and the numbers will show. I mean, I know, like Councilmember Ashby said, but the numbers are, we're looking to hire 126 by officers, or give or take, the chief, before we get to the end. So is it as much as I like to see, as fast as I like to see? Ms. Janae, no. I think the public is happy with the restorations as much as they've seen with the parks. And the officers, we like to see more. I understand this, but it takes time to put people through the academy. But going back to Measure U, it was a trust that people put in us. I mean, regarding the brownouts, you know, the police department, I think we're living up to that agreement tonight. I feel that we are going to move forward for restoring the brownouts, and hopefully with the police department. They're working as hard as they can. When I go to the police department, I talk to their background, you know, officers. I tell them to push as fast as they can, but we have to get quality candidates too to work for the police department. They represent the community. We're not going to take, as the chief says, there's a lot of competition out there. But for the people out there, we are working very hard to put Measure U, the restorations, for you to see. I mean, it might not be as fast as you'd like to see. It's not fast enough for me. But I believe the city, we're doing the best that we can, given the budget we had. But I am somewhat a pessimist on our revenues. But I think Measure U, we will see an uptick in revenues, which will support the restoration. So I think we'll see more restorations as the future comes. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. As to staffing numbers, let me just throw out there that our staff's been working hard over the year of getting hiring. And a lot of it, you know, I appreciate the community coming forth and trying to get us more help, but we have been putting more officers out on the street. Well, last year we've hired over 100 within the organization. Now that's inclusive of the civilian staff. We've actually hired 89 sworn officers over this last year, and that's after processing over 2,000 people through our backgrounds unit. And we've also hired 17 on the civilian. So we have put more officers out there. Right now we have an authorized strength of 683. If you count what we have on the street, that's at 624, but we also have 39 currently in the academy. Right now we're also working on our next academy that will start in July, and in that one we hope to have somewhere between 40 and 45 folks in there.
Thank you. Any questions for the Chief? Yeah. Steve.
Follow up on the academy. So are we able to do 3 now or just 2 max in a year?
We're running with 2 academies. We tried the 3 academy model, and it really didn't work for us. It wasn't very efficient in use of the staff and trying to get people through there to get through successfully.
Right. So that our max is about 80, 90 to add per year then?
Somewhere right around 80, but we're also hiring basic academy graduates from other academies, plus we're also looking at laterals. So when the opportunities arise, we are hiring those. We actually hired 15 basic academy graduates and laterals. And what we're trying to do is go to some of the regional academies, like in the Bay Area and that, and trying to pick out what I would call the stars out of those ones to hire back here in Sacramento. Right. But right now, I will tell you that the hiring is getting very competitive, because a lot of folks are in the hiring mode. So it is, I know just the space at our academy, I have a lot of outside jurisdictions at one space, and we're encumbering a lot of spots. And so they're already negotiating, trying to have us reduce our amount of officers so they could up theirs. So,
thank you, Chief.
And all the recent publication of things that were going bad within the city of Sacramento, I want to put a different spin on it. Things are going very well. You know, we had one weekend where things went bad, and it got publicized all over the place. Sacramento is a great place. Sacramento is a safe place. Last year, crime went down over 10% in the city of Sacramento, and that is in every sector that they track in the UCRs, in the Unified Crime Reporting. We had over 2,300 less victims than the year before. This year, crime is tracking down even more. All categories but one, and that's shootings. And that's one that we have our focus on with the gang issues. But crime as of February, it was down over 17%. And that's not with the 10%. That's addition to the 10% that went down the year before. To date, we've had over 800 less victims than last year. So things are trending in the right direction. Crime is down. The city is safe. So the publications, I look at that, kind of paint one picture, but I'm here to tell you that things aren't as dire as the way that was presented, not only in the regional digest, but also in the editorial. So with that, I'm available for questions.
All right, thanks, Chief. Thanks, Chief. We have one member from the public, or two.
Okay, David.
And who's our last speaker?
Ron Emsley.
Again, if I may request the overhead. I support the best gang in town. This guy's gang. There's only one problem. He doesn't have enough. He's outnumbered. I'd like the numbers. Validated gang members in our city, Chief? 4,700. 624 police officers. What's the ratio? Average police officers per 1,000 population in the United States, 2.5. Sacramento, 1.1, 1.2. Last year, almost a year ago, remember this? This man's a community activist, a law enforcement professional. We had a conversation about this, didn't we? Well, I want to share something else with you. This guy's not a gangbanger. We've had eyes on him for almost a month out in the community. They got him a block from my home. Mr. Cohen, you've been there. A block from my home. This is an AB 109 reject, people. You have thousands of them wandering our streets. Now, I don't know when that chart's going to be updated. We're going to talk about that. Addressing on items not on the agenda. But last time I heard, we had 8.3 parolees per 1,000 population. We have 1.2, 1.3 police officers per 1,000 population. There's your problem, folks, not just gangs. It's easy to stick labels on things, people, to divert the conversation from where it needs to be. How we're supporting the men and women of law enforcement and those people out in the community that made this arrest possible. I want to hear about the gun in his counsel. I want to hear about his assault on police officers and his felony history. I want to hear
We
how
need your
AB
final comment,
109
please.
put him on the streets early. I know my time's out.
Ron Emsley.
I'm glad that Jay is waking up to the crime problem. I've been coming down here complaining about last year's murders in Oak Park. It's said that Sacramento is a great and a safe place. Yes, where Jay lives, there was no murders. But unfortunately, where I live, there was 6 murders. We had the highest concentration of all of Sacramento County. But I guess sports and $250 million is more important than proper policing. Now, this is the map that the Bee had. Total of 3 shootings here. That's probably equivalent. It's pretty close to any other geographical area. It's on the high side. But, you know, you folks never answer. And I've been down here a couple of times complaining. My part of Sacramento is not great. My part of Sacramento is not safe. But my councilman's part of Sacramento is safe. And it's also great. And so that's the disparity, I think. He's out of touch. Thank you.
Again, I just want to thank you and all of you guys. women and men, for the work that you've done. I know you've done a lot more with less over the years, and the results are really quite good, and the crime has gone down. We certainly need to get after these pieces on it. But you certainly have my support, and I hope as we work through our budget process, the support of the council to do what we need to do to make sure that we have long-term solutions here. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Councilmember Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, I want to thank you for the report, and I do think that some of the information that you presented presents a different scenario than what some might suggest is happening in our city. I think that obviously you have statistics. Some of the other comments are perception, but perception becomes reality when it's your neighborhood. And I think we can all agree to that. I want to just touch on a couple of things that you and I spoke about just briefly, about ways of which we can continue the downward trend in crime in our city, and in particular the idea that when we have high crime areas and when police come into those areas, there's an anxiety, from people who may not have created done something that was criminal, but there's still this unfamiliarity with one another. And we had talked about ways we can bring communities and the police officers together so that it would be much like it was when you and I, because we grew up very close to one another, even though we didn't know each other. But we knew the police officers in our community. Police officers were familiar to us and could speak to us in a way that was authoritative but also caring, and we had that understanding. And so we just didn't see police officers when there was an issue and we heard the siren blaring. And again, when we were young people, you go to the grocery store and we saw the police officers and we interacted with them. And so, from your perspective, does that thought process have any, does it resonate with you? Is it something that you think would be supported by, the police officers under your command?
No, I think it would, if you incentivize it, and I'm not sure how you incentivize it. I know.
That would be for the city manager to help us figure out, But something that would encourage, our police officers to be more involved and, to actually live and spend time. And I think the closer you are to the actual, heartbeat, then I think the response and the interaction is different. So. And
I agree with you. And again, the concept of melding pop into patrol. When I ran the South Command, the thing I'd get from the council or from the community members whenever I'd present was, I know and I love my pop officer. He knows me, she knows me, I know them, but I don't know who this patrol officer is. So the concept here is having them both together so that when they're out interacting, they can start getting those relationships. Our officers often, have a stilted perception of the community because they only deal with the worst element, right? Because they don't get called when people have a celebration. They don't get called to birthdays. They get called when it's the worst, offense that's going on. So sometimes they get that perception. But if we break the perception that it's not just in the negative but in the positive of having these outreach and dealing with, the 99% of the city of Sacramento residents, then I think that also helps break down some of that perception also for the officers.
June 17th. June 17th. All right, our next speaker.
Okay, we're now to David Janae and Ron Emsley, and then Reverend Paul.
I love Sam. Steve. Contrary to popular opinion, Dave Janae is a patient man. An irritant sometimes. Thanks to Steve Cohen and Robbie Waters, Sam, and then you. Not long after that. 5 years. Because I wondered why the police officers of this city didn't have Knox box keys, and they had to roll 2 fire trucks out to get in one of my buildings. Remember that, Mr. Cohen? Remember that? I'm betting somebody up there was a captain about the time that was going on. This, I will be celebrating my 20th year in Sacramento when Dan Lundgren asked me to be a fly on the wall at Department of Justice to deal with the issue of parole and the slaughter of the police officers in this state in 1993. I spent 2 years at Department of Justice at 4949 Broadway. I've been to this council many, many times. I've had 3 different police chiefs talk about this issue. On radio, on television, in front of these council chambers, in Chief Summers' office. Parolees are my #1 problem. We have to see their mugshots. When these people are out here, these felons with guns, and they're going to jail thanks to the great work done by this man and his troops and the community now working together, I want to see their mugshots. I don't know why they're granted protection and privacy when they don't accord that privacy and protection of our citizens. I want those other victims that didn't file those reports and those crime stats didn't get on the record, Chief, to go, holy pardon me, that's the guy that stuck a gun in my face at 19th and H on February 23rd. Let's not give them privacy. Let's not protect wanted felons, parolees at large, and fugitives in our city any longer. Thank you.